Welcome back to the deep dive.
Mhm.
I hope you brought your boots today and maybe a poncho because we are stepping away from the marble floors of the Red Keep and getting straight into the mud.
You are definitely not kidding about the mud. It is great to be back, by the way.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So today we are digging into the premiere of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, specifically that first part titled The Hedge Knight.
And if you are tuning in expecting dragons burning down fleets or White Walkers storming the wall, you are in for a serious culture shock.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this is Westeros, but it feels completely different.
It really does. It is smaller, it's grittier. So here is the mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to recap the plot, right? Because anyone can just watch the show for themselves.
Exactly.
We want to unpack the specific tone, this really grounded reality they're building, and then we are going to crack open the history books. Because even though this story is about a literal nobody, the background is absolutely stuffed with lore.
Stuffed with it. Easter eggs, political tension, stuff the show doesn't explicitly explain to you.
And that is the best part.
It really is. I mean, it looks so simple on the surface, but the undercurrents are incredibly complex once you know what to look for.
Right. So before we get to the plot, let's just orient ourselves because we've covered House of the Dragon, we've covered Game of Thrones. Where the heck are we on the timeline right now?
We are in a really interesting sweet spot. We are about 90 years after the Dance of the Dragons in House of the Dragon, and roughly 100 years before Game of Thrones.
Okay.
The Targaryens are still on the throne, but the dragons are dead. They are completely gone. And the realm is actually recovering from a massive civil war called the Blackfire Rebellion.
Which happened, what, like 15 years prior?
Yeah, about 15 years ago.
So it's peacetime, but it's a very nervous peace.
That's the perfect way to describe it. The entire country is just holding its breath.
Okay, so setting the scene, the show opens, and it is just miserable. It is pouring rain. We see this massive young guy, Dunk, standing over a grave.
Yeah.
He is soaking wet. He's burying an old man. And it's not heroic at all. It's just sad.
That is Ser Arlan of Pennytree he's burying. That was his mentor. And, you know, this opening image tells you absolutely everything you need to know about the stakes of this story.
How so?
Well, in Game of Thrones, when a hand of the king dies, it is a massive state funeral. Here, a hedge knight dies, and he gets a literal hole in the mud dug by a teenager.
Let's pause on that term, actually, because they use it a lot. Hedge knight. To me, that sounds like a gardener with a sword. What actually is a hedge knight in this universe?
You can think of them as the gig economy workers of the Westerosi military complex.
Gig economy workers.
Yeah, they are itinerant homeless knights. They have no master, they have no land, and usually they have absolutely no money. They sleep under hedges, which is literally where the name comes from.
That makes sense.
And they just travel from castle to castle looking for employment, usually guarding caravans or fighting in little local skirmishes.
So they're basically drifting mercenaries, but with a fancy title.
A title that the High Lords barely even respect. I mean, they are the absolute bottom rung of the nobility ladder.
Which totally explains Dunk's situation right at the start. Ser Arlan dies, and Dunk is left with basically nothing.
Nothing at all.
So he takes the old man's sword, his armor, which is rusty and dented to hell, and his horses, including this massive old warhorse named Thunder.
And we should point out this is a crime, technically, or at least a very murky gray area.
Because he wasn't officially inheriting it.
Right. Dunk just decides to take Ser Arlan's gear and assume the role of a knight himself. He wants to go to the tournament at Ashford Meadow to make some money. But you really have to understand the desperation here. He isn't doing this for glory or fame. He's doing it because if he doesn't, he starves to death.
It felt very much like playing an RPG to me. Like Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Oh, that is a perfect comparison.
You know where you have to worry about your hunger meter and the condition of your boots? Way more than you worry about saving the princess.
Exactly. It is immersive world building. In Skyrim, you read the lore books about all the great battles, but you actually play as the guy looting the skeletons in the cave.
And Dunk is the guy looting the skeleton. He really is. So he rides to Ashford Meadow looking for this tournament. He's got the sword, he's got the horse. He thinks to himself, I'm ready. But then he hits the most terrifying monster in all of Westeros.
A dragon.
Worse. Middle management.
Yes. The ultimate villain. The bureaucracy.
He walks in, totally ready to sign up, and he meets Plumber, the master of games or the steward, whatever his title is. And this guy just immediately shuts him down. Dunk says, I'm a knight, and Plumber basically says, prove it.
This scene is so vital for understanding the era. In the later shows, war is chaotic. You just grab a sword and kill people. But here, in peacetime, the class structure is incredibly rigid. Plumber demands a sponsor.
Right.
He needs a known, landed knight to physically vouch that Dunk is actually a knight.
Which just seems so unfair to him. Dunk tells him, Ser Arlan knighted me before he died, which is a classic fantasy trope. But Plumber isn't buying it at all.
And why should he? Any peasant could just steal a sword and claim to be a knight. The tournament is a sport for the wealthy. They want to keep the riffraff out.
So the system is working exactly as designed.
Exactly. It's designed to exclude people exactly like Dunk.
So Dunk, being naive and super honest, thinks, okay, I'll just go talk to the Highborns and sort this out. He remembers that Ser Arlan used to serve House Dondarrion, so he goes to see Sir Manfred Dondarrion. And I have to say, the rejection here was just brutal to watch.
It was polite, but it was incredibly cold. Manfred doesn't know him. He doesn't even remember Ser Arlan. To Manfred, Dunk is just a large beggar standing in his tent.
Yeah.
It really highlights the total invisibility of the lower class in Westeros. You can serve a family for years, literally bleed for them, and their children won't even remember your name.
But then you contrast that with what happens back in the camp. Dunk is feeling totally cheated. He's got these camp followers, Red and Beoni. They just start making fun of him.
Right, they mock his clothes, his rusty armor.
It's a harsh world. Everyone just punches down.
It is.
But then Dunk does something that I think really defines his character for the rest of the story. He doesn't get mad. He doesn't threaten them with his sword. He just sighs, drops his shoulders, and admits, I'm tired and I need help.
Vulnerability. It is his absolute superpower.
And it totally works. The mood shifts instantly. Red stops mocking him and actually helps him fix his gear.
This is the core insight of the whole episode. Dunk isn't smart. He isn't rich. He isn't even particularly skilled with the sword yet, but he is undeniably earnest.
Yeah, that authenticity just bridges the gap.
It works on the camp followers, and eventually it works on the Kinder Highborns too, like Raymond Fossaway.
Oh, we have to mention the Fossaways really quickly because that was such a great visual gag of the good apple and the bad apple.
Literally wearing apples on their chests. You have Sir Stefan Fossaway, who is just arrogance personified, and his cousin Raymond, who is actually decent. It's the show telling you that nobility isn't genetic.
And Raymond is the one who drags Dunk to see Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm. I love this guy. He is just a massive, boisterous jock.
He is the Baratheon archetype perfected. He loves fighting, he loves drinking, and he loves laughing. And he likes Dunk because Dunk is big and honest.
But notice what he says to him.
Right. He tells Dunk, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, he's not even being mean about it. He's just being completely realistic.
These other knights train every single day. They eat well. They have the best armor money can buy. Dunk is literally walking into a meat grinder.
But Dunk is stubborn. He's going to do it anyway. However, we're skipping the most important relationship in the show right now. The whole reason we are doing this deep dive.
Yes.
The egg in the Dunk and egg.
The boy.
So let's rewind a bit. Dunk is at the inn, and he sees this weird kid playing in the dirt. He's completely bald, he is insolent, and he's wearing rags. Dunk just assumes he's a stable boy and yells at him.
Stable boy. And the kid just looks up at him with this incredible defiant stare.
Dunk threatens to give him a clout in the ear. Which made me wonder, is that like valid parenting in Westeros? Because he says it a lot.
It was definitely a different time. Corporal punishment was basically standard education back then. But what is so interesting there is the chemistry between them.
Yeah, Dunk is annoyed, but he's not actually cruel.
Exactly. And the boy, who calls himself Egg, is just fascinated by Dunk.
Which is weird, right? Because Dunk is a nobody. Why does this kid attach himself like a barnacle to this random hedge knight?
Well, think about it from the kid's perspective. Egg is clearly very smart, and he is incredibly bored. And suddenly, here comes this giant of a man who is clearly out of his depth, but is trying so hard to be honorable.
Yeah.
I think Egg sees a project, or maybe he just sees a convenient ticket to get to the tournament.
Dunk tries to shake him. He rides off. But later, at his campsite, after being rejected by everyone at the meadow, he finds Egg just sitting there by his fire.
Yeah.
And Dunk is he's lonely at this point, right?
He is actively grieving his mentor. He is scared about the tournament. And suddenly, here is this kid who actually wants to be with him, who actually believes in him.
And that moment under the tree where Dunk finally relents and accepts him as a squire.
That is the emotional anchor of the entire series. Dunk invents his new name on the spot, Sir Duncan the Tall, and this legendary partnership is born.
And they look up and see a shooting star right after. Egg calls it good luck.
Which is very optimistic of him, though if you know Westeros, comets and stars usually mean dragons or blood.
Speaking of dragons and blood, let's pivot. We've done the plot. Now I want to get into the deep end of the lore, because while I was watching, I kept thinking to myself, there is something seriously up with this kid. And you, being the expert, clearly know what it is.
Oh, the show is absolutely screaming clues at you if you know where to look.
Let's start with the head. The kid is bald, shaved completely clean.
Practically speaking, you could just say it's for lice. That was very common for peasants. But narratively, it is a disguise.
Right.
Think back to House of the Dragon. Do you remember the Valerian bastards?
Aelin and Adam of Hull.
Exactly. What is the one defining physical trait of Valyrian blood?
The silver gold hair.
Right. If this boy grows his hair out, he becomes a walking neon sign that says, I have Targaryen DNA. Shaving his head is literally the only way he can move through the world anonymously if he is of that bloodline.
So Egg is hiding his identity. But he isn't the only one doing that. There was that scene at the inn with the drunk guy. The one passed out in the corner.
The one Dunk barely even notices when he walks in.
But the camera definitely noticed him. And more importantly, the camera noticed his money. He pays for his drinks with a gold coin that has a three-headed dragon stamped on it.
That is the royal sigil. A man in a muddy roadside inn, dressed in a plain cloak, paying with royal gold. That is Prince Daeron Targaryen.
Wait, an actual prince, just sitting there in the mud.
Yes.
Yep.
And he is supposed to be at the tournament. This is the context the show implies, but doesn't spoon-feed you. Daeron is hiding. He is actively drinking himself into a stupor to avoid his royal responsibilities.
Why, though? Is he just a party animal who doesn't want to joust?
It is much darker than that. In the lore, Daeron has prophetic dreams. Dragon dreams. And they absolutely terrify him. He drinks to shut the visions up.
Wow.
So you have a disguised royal kid outside playing in the mud and a disguised royal prince inside hiding in the bottle.
That makes the Nine Kingdoms conversation, they have so much more interesting in Westeros.
Oh, I loved that scene. It was brilliant writing.
Okay, so Egg is pestering Dunk, and he just casually starts rattling off the geography of Westeros. He mentions there are 9 realms.
Yeah.
I actually paused the screen and thought, wait a minute, it's called the 7 Kingdoms.
Let's play a game really quick. Can you name the 7 kingdoms for me?
Okay, the pressure is on. Let's see. The North, the Vale, the Westerlands, the Reach, the Stormlands, Dorne, and the Riverlands.
That is 7, but you left out the Iron Islands, and you left out the Crown Lands, which is where King's Landing is.
Right, so the math just doesn't work.
The 7 Kingdoms is a historical term from when Aegon the Conqueror first arrived. Back then, there were 7 distinct kings, but after the conquest, the Targaryens redrew the maps. Okay. They carved out the Crown Lands for themselves to rule directly, and they split the Riverlands away from the Ironborn. So geographically speaking, Egg is entirely correct. There are 9 distinct administrative regions.
Any stable boy definitely shouldn't know that.
A stable boy knows how to shovel manure. He does not know the nuance of post-conquest geopolitical redistricting.
Right. Dunk just completely misses it because he's uneducated himself. But Egg is totally telling on himself here. He has clearly had a muster's education.
It perfectly shows the massive gap in their worldviews without explicitly stating it.
Let's talk about the banners at Ashford Meadow next. Because for a nerd like me, scanning the background of those wide shots was a feast. It felt like the showrunners were just winking at the audience constantly.
It really was a who's who of Westerosi history.
We mentioned House Dondarrion earlier, the purple lightning bolt.
Such an iconic sigil. If you watched Game of Thrones, you definitely remember Beric Dondarrion.
The guy with the eye patch and the flaming sword.
Exactly. This is his ancestor, Manfred. It is so cool to see the house in its prime functioning at a highborn tournament long before they are reduced to being ragged outlaws hiding in a cave.
Then there was House Beesbury, the yellow and black beehives.
That one actually hurt a little bit to see.
Why is that?
Do you remember House of the Dragon? The Green Council scene?
Oh, man. Oh, God, the old...
Lord Lyman Beesbury, the only man in the small council room who stood up and said, "This is treason. Rhaenyra is the rightful heir."
And then Kristen Cole just slammed his head into the marble ball on the table.
It was gruesome. But seeing the Beesbury banner flying here reminds you that the family actually survived that trauma. They are still here, still proud, 100 years later.
And then there was the really subtle connection to Arya Stark. Dunk mentions he's been to Maidenpool.
Right. He remembers Ser Arlan hitting him there for some infraction. Maidenpool is a town in the Riverlands.
In Game of Thrones, when Arya is captured by Tywin Lannister and she's pretending to be a peasant boy.
She lies and says she is from Maidenpool. And Tywin, being the sharpest tactical mind in the entire room, immediately quizzes her on it. He asks, "What is the sigil of House Mouton of Maidenpool?"
And she doesn't know the answer.
Which almost gets her killed on the spot.
Yeah.
It is just a really nice thematic thread connecting Dunk's journey to Arya's. They're both small people trying to survive in a land of absolute giants.
Now, I want to talk about the puppet show. Because usually when a TV show stops the plot for a literal puppet show, I check my phone. But this felt incredibly important to the themes of the episode.
It was basically the thematic thesis of the entire series.
It's a puppet knight fighting a puppet dragon. The dragon breathes firewell, red paper, and the knight has a mirror shield.
This is the legend of Ser Arlan of the Mirror Shield. He's a famous hero from the Age of Heroes. The story goes that he couldn't look directly at the dragon Urax without turning to stone or getting burned, depending on the telling. So he polished his shield and used the reflection to sneak up and kill the beast.
It's a very classic George and the Dragon style myth.
It is. But here is the historian's critique of the scene. It is totally anachronistic. The puppet show puts Serwyn in the Kingsguard white armor. But the Kingsguard wasn't actually founded until thousands of years later by the Targaryens.
So it's basically fake news.
It's cultural propaganda. It blends the ancient heroes with the current ruling dynasty to make the Targaryens look better by association. But the most important image in that whole scene is the dragon itself.
Right, it's made of paper, just wood and paint.
Exactly. Think about House of the Dragon. Dragons were nuclear weapons. They were terrifying, living gods that could wipe out armies. In Dunk's time, just 70 years later, dragons are just theater. They are cheap entertainment for children.
Because they're completely extinct now.
The very last dragon died about 20 years before this episode takes place. This is a world that is hauntingly empty of magic, and I actually think that is exactly why the bureaucracy is so incredibly stifling.
Wait, unpack that for me.
Right.
How does the lack of dragons lead to more paperwork?
Think about it. When you have full-grown dragons, power is absolute. I have a dragon, you do what I say, or I burn your castle down. It's very simple. But when the dragons are gone, power becomes about laws, lineage, sponsors, and gold.
Wow.
The High Lords have to create these incredibly rigid, complex structures to maintain their control because they don't have the nuclear option anymore.
That is fascinating. So the paperwork Plumber makes, Dunk sign, is basically the replacement for Dragonfire.
Yeah.
It's the new wall they build to keep people out.
Precisely. And that is why Dunk's struggle feels so grounded and relatable. He isn't fighting an ice zombie or a monster. He is fighting the system.
And he's doing it with a bald kid who knows way too much geography.
A very dangerous combination.
So we wrap up the episode with Dunk and Egg sitting under the stars. They are officially a team now. We know they are heading into the tournament in the morning.
Yeah.
But based on what you said about the Blackfire Rebellion and the lingering tension in the realm, I have a feeling this tournament isn't just going to be about hitting each other with sticks.
Oh, absolutely not. Tournaments in Westeros are where the political pressure cookers finally explode.
Right.
You have all the lords in one place. They are drinking, they are heavily armed, and they are holding on to massive grudges from the Civil War. Dunk thinks he's just there to win some coin and buy some food. He has absolutely no idea he's walking into a political minefield.
And that is exactly where we leave them. Two ants walking straight into a nest of vipers.
But at least the ant has a very thick skull.
True. All right, that is our deep dive on the Hedge Knight. We've covered the Reign, the Class War, the Secret Targaryens, and the Paper Dragons. As we sign off, what is the one big thought you want the listener to take with them today?
I want you to think about the definition of a knight. In this episode, we saw landed knights who were arrogant bullies. We saw a royal prince who is a complete drunk. And then we saw Dunk, a guy with no money, a stolen sword, and absolutely no paperwork, who is the only one actually acting with honor. The show is really asking you, is a knight a title you get from a king, or is it something you do?
A knight who remembered his vows.
Even if he never actually took them.
Man, I love this show already. Thank you for guiding us through the history books. We will be back to break down the next part of Dunk and Egg's journey very soon. Until then, keep your shield up and don't take any wooden nickels or paper dragons.
And definitely mind your squires.
See you next time.